Welcome back to Just the Facts. We're doing the ins and outs of the opposition's push for a referendum, just answering the questions and getting a few clarifications on why this is so necessary. As I said earlier on, in studio with us, we have Mheshimiwa Mwaura, who's giving us brilliant insights on the necessity and the importance of this referendum. Now, before we went to the break, we were talking inclusivity. The ethnic, I think, composition of Kenya is very large. It's huge. We have one of the most diverse ethnic compositions in the wider East African region. So could I say that it's a bit ambitious to think that the president can cater to or come up with a nice wholesome, representation of all our ethnic components? Isn't it a bit ambitious?
Yes, it's ambitious to have 42 if you like. I think sometimes we say we are 70. It's ambitious to have 42 appointments. But that is not an excuse to favor one side against the other. I don't think we have seen enough attempts to reach out to as many as of these enclaves as much as possible. The problem with Africa in general is the essence of micronationalities. And the evolution of the Westphalian model of state since the Scramble for Africa in the Berlin Conference in 1881, is it, has not stemmed that problem because of the fact that ours is a very representative tribal elections. There are countries like Tanzania which have succeeded, for example, in having a more homogenic society by the promotion of a lingua franca, in this case Kiswahili. Mm-hmm. But for quite a number of other sub-Saharan African countries, that remains a mirage. Now, in that regard, therefore, elections are seen as more like an ethnic census of 18-year-olds and above from certain ethnic communities. With that in mind, therefore, and knowing your support base, you need to reach out to others. The fact that you are seen to be favoring those who voted for you does not settle very well with people. Because by the end of the day, Kenyans are all taxpayers. And they pay money not to the people they voted for, but to the government of the day. In this regard, it is a Jubilee administration. So I think it's not, I think Kenyans are not asking that for every appointment they see a 42nd representation of that particular community they come from. But they want to see some face of Kenya. They see an Elmolo there, they will be happy. They see a Dasunjat there, they will be happy. They see a Basanya there, they will be happy. Not just the usual, Kikuyu, Luo, Kamba, that kind of thing. It needs to be more broad, and Kenyans would appreciate that. Now, if you are seen to be consistent in a certain way, that would not augur very well with them. Of course, that's why you hear this kind of revulsion. But having said that, I think you cannot also say that only certain groups of people have got talent and others don't have, like has been advanced, that sometimes you just need to look at you need to look at the qualifications of people and realize that other people are more qualified than others. In fact, and indeed, we should not ignore history, Kamene, because it's not by coincidence that out of 4 presidents, 3 have come from my own community. It's not by coincidence.
It's true.
It's by design.
Yeah.
Now, what are you telling a young boy who has an ambition of becoming president? That they will not be because of their ethnicity? It's a very sad state of affairs. Look at somebody like Bonaya Godana, the late. Yeah. He was a vice chairman of Uhuru Kenyatta when they were in Kano. I would be very glad if, for example, he was the running mate of Uhuru that time as a Borana. Is it somebody from marginalized groups and who would actually become maybe a better president? Look at Mrisho Kikwete in Tanzania. Mm-hmm. He comes from one of the smallest tribes there in Bagamoyo. You see? So this idea that you can only have a president from the most populous communities, then it also means that presidencies are predetermined. The world was very happy about the election of one Barack Obama as president of the United States, not because of anything, but because the African Americans are only 12% of the American population. Now that's the situation we want. If you look at who is 12% of this country, are they likely to be president? My answer would be no. So the idea of coalition politics has improved this, because then people have realized that not a single tribe can make it to the presidency. But I think, in my opinion, because that has got an impact on who gets which plum jobs, that's why people are uncomfortable. Okay, so hand in hand with that, I think in as much as we are talking about cohesion in the country, there is a notion also that
politics has greatly divided this country, especially on tribal lines. Yes, the coalition mechanism has managed to bring particular groups together. I think the Jubilee administration was a perfect personification of that, considering that before 2007, the same tribes were fighting against each other, and now they have managed to find a way to work together. On one hand, you can say, yes, the coalition mechanism has managed to create some form of cohesion, and the change in politics has managed to create some form of cohesion. But at the same time, isn't it only fair to say that it has also created greater divides? That now, above any other time, the tribal lines have been drawn. That especially with the disparity in notions between the opposition and the government, and the fact that none is willing to be tolerant of the other, that the divides are much, much clearer. And furthermore, that this push for a referendum is creating an even huger divide in the country. Is it, can we just put this on the back burner, sit for a minute and deal with the cohesion problem in the country, with the lack of unity in the country?
Kamene, you make me laugh. Assuming there is no referendum, will those appointments make Kenya heal? In the same sense of a kindred spirit of romance, as we were so told, reach out to other communities. If you're able to bring the Kikuyus and the Kalenjins in Rift Valley, and they voted, and it's good, because the kind of stories I'm telling you that I have come across, some of them who are my relatives, they are horrendous. The kind of things that people went through in Rift Valley is terrible. I don't think I would want to wish anyone, even my worst enemy, what they went through. So that is the same spirit. Leadership is about rising above this kind of sectarian, ethnic considerations.
Are we really rising?
We are not, and there's more reason why we need a referendum, maybe.
The referendum
because
is going to...
it will help people to get more resources at the involved units and forget about this presidency, because it is now becoming a preoccupation of everybody. Everybody wants to be in government. Even if you are so poor, you hear people saying to Kosarikalini, and yet you are going hungry at the end of the day. Those kind of things need to stop so that you have money at the local level. Now we have cash transfer programs for people with disabilities, for old people. These monies, when they go to the household, they stimulate the local economy. For me, that's better option than trying to eye at an apple so high that you'll never reach. So when people talk about devolution and pesa machinani, they want money in their pockets. Right now, if you look, the monies that were being stolen, because corruption is high in our country, they were being taken to Swiss banks, either through Anglo-leasing or whatever other means of seepage and leakage. But now, if, for example, and I'm not encouraging corruption, if monies are stolen at the Kiambu County government, they will circulate within that local economy. The boys will buy new cars, and they will also buy new border borders. So the point that we are trying to say is that let this money go down there. They have more to do with the investment, local investment, even if they are diverted, that would benefit people. But if you look at the multiplier effect of monies being stolen at the center, that's why Kenyan and African countries continue to be poor, because the elite have colluded with other elite from elsewhere and businessmen to fleece off people's money. In fact, that's the more reason why the Bretton Woods institutions are not very good, keen on devolution, because you see, you can control one country using just their finance minister by having a policy. And that's how, for example, the president was misled about the Anglo-leasing case. But if you have so many other people who are actors down there, if you form little new elites, first, you're creating new leadership opportunities for people and new leaders in this country, but also you are diffusing this idea of thinking that we all have to come to Nairobi to benefit.
That's true. Now, my next question for you is this. Is the referendum about the government, or is the is the referendum about the government and how they are functioning and how they are administering the nation, or is the referendum about what the Constitution is not doing? Is the referendum against Uhuru Kenyatta and his administration, or is it against the law of the land?
It all depends, because there is a hidden question within any form of plebiscite. If you look at the 1992 election, it was about the multipartyism. 1997, it was about reforms. 2002, it was about change of regime. 2007, it was about the betrayal of the MOU. 2013, the Uhuru and Ruto side succeeded in making the election a plebiscite on the ICC. Now, it all depends on the hidden question here. Will it be about the verdict of the Uhuru administration for the last 2 years, for example? Because I think by the time we hold a referendum, if it is successful, it will be 2 years. Or will it be about a referendum about Raila Odinga should run in 2017 or not? It all depends on what will be the hidden question, the other question that will not be on the paper. And that, of course, is a political process.
No, I think my question is this push for a review or a reform about the particular things the Quad Coalition wants to address? Is it about Uhuru's failure, or is it about the lack of a mechanism to deal with particular things? Is this a push against the government itself, or is it a push against the lack of a particular mechanism to cater to things in the country?
And that's why, Michelle, I'm telling you, it depends on how the other question will be framed. The other question, leave alone what we'll ask about the IBC and the devolution, it will depend on how the other question is framed. And this other question is framed through political rhetoric. It's about how Jubilee and CORD argue their case in the public. Okay. And already we can see that Jubilee has said we are going to introduce a question about the age of Raila Odinga. And then Raila went to Eliud Owalo's sister's funeral and asked people whether he should run, and they said yes, he should. You get the point?
I get
so
you.
Already we are framing that other question through political rhetoric. And that becomes ultimately what defines whether this referendum passes or fails.
Okay.
And of course the impact, whether that then will be a verdict about the performance of the Uhuru administration.
Yes.
So that, let's leave it to politics. However, it is a right, and I want to insist here,
yes,
it is a right for anyone to go for a referendum, especially when there is no referendum law putting the timelines on when we can have a referendum.
That's very, very true. Now, clearly, we can see that the push for the referendum is pegged on a lack, that there is something missing, that there's an element that is not getting through, that there are some things that need to be addressed that are not being addressed. Hypothetically, let's assume that Raila Odinga won the presidential election, the general election, and he was our president. Would we still be going to a referendum? I
think so. If it would have been in the interest of those who are promoting for a referendum, if Raila was the president, they would do so. It is within their rights. So remember, I told you, this is not something that is given by either CORD or Jubilee. It's a constitutional right. There is a provision for it. And just to take you back, when Ruto said no to the Constitution, I think, in my opinion, he was not opposing the Constitution. He just wanted to galvanize his support in Rift Valley. And he succeeded. Because the people who voted for Raila from Rift Valley in 2007, they never did it because of Ruto. That's a misconception that people do not seem to understand. Ruto was told, we are already at Kiboswa, going to the lake. You follow us or you perish. And I can tell you, if he had not joined the Raila bandwagon, he would not even have been a member of parliament. So this time round, what he wanted to do is to capture that constituency. So that if, for example, he told them to vote no and they accepted, then he was the de facto leader of that ethnic community, of that region. So that hidden question must be answered politically, because politics is the art of the possible.
That's very, very true. Now, CORD Coalition we know that the statutory requirement is 1 million signatures, but CORD has come out firmly saying, guess what, leave 1 million, leave 2 million, we're coming with 5 million signatures. Yes. What's that about? It's about
the votes that Raila Odinga got in the last election. There were 5.3 million, as per the official IBC results. And also remember that what I told you earlier on, that you have at the bare minimum possibilities of 14 referenda at any given point. So if you have 5 million, then you are reducing that possibility. You are saying out of these 14, we have 5 that we can actually say they are with us. It's about galvanizing the support of those people you expect to vote with you come the referenda. I think it's a smart political strategy. Now, it remains to be seen whether my side of the coalition will achieve that threshold, because it's also quite high as well.
That's true. So even without knowing how the questions are going to be framed or the contents of the referendum, you know what it's going to particularly ask. Of course, we know what the issues are, but straight out what it's going to be asked. CORD Coalition is more than confident that 5 million people will rally right behind them without fully knowing what exactly it is we're trying to address.
There are 4 issues that CORD has said that they need to be addressed. They may not have yet been put in a bill. It's about electoral reforms, it's about land rights, it's about issues to do with devolution and percentage, it's about inclusion and equal opportunity. So I think those are generally guidelines on what is about this referendum. We remain to see if they are put in the proper way that then people would have contention with.
All right. Characteristically, the Jubilee administration is against the referendum. They're really trying to thwart it, and they have said they're going to use the mechanism of tyranny of numbers to kill the referendum. How do you people feel about that?
There is no tyranny of numbers in this whole issue, because referendum is an opportunity when the government say no, then the people can say yes. By the way, there is no issue of tyranny of numbers here. The problem we are having is that people have not understood how is it a referendum can take place. And that's why I started by giving people the whole procedure of having a referendum. And I said, and I want to repeat, it's not easy to hold a referendum. And there is no way the tyranny of numbers will work here because there's no simple majority. Even if you are to go by the MCS, you will not go the way. But the other day I saw actually it's yesterday, I saw the deputy president being very funny because I think he found some hostility at Bomet by telling members of the county assembly that they are going to have offices. How does that concern him? Surely, I mean, Ruto is not the one who dishes out offices in county assemblies, but it's just a way of wooing MCAs because one of the things that people don't seem to understand that MCAs have become very powerful indeed.
Oh yes,
in this new administration. Reason being because when you mean devolution, you almost mean MCAs because they are now they have now held the they have now held the governors by the guns. So I think it's very important to understand even the way we need to limit the extent to which MCAs can have oversight over some of the functions that they would also want to use for their own personal benefit.
Yes.
That needs to be looked at because if you look at even the popular initiative, they have a very clear say. Because if majority of the county assemblies do approve a popular bill, that's the only time it can come to parliament.
Now, the MCAs have been very quiet. If anything, most Kenyans didn't know about the role of the MCAs or the importance they held in their office. And we saw that the MCAs are also jumping onto this referendum bandwagon. How does CORD feel about that?
No, it's okay because they are part and parcel of the process. The framers of the Constitution gave them a very critical role to play with regard to the advancement of a popular bill. And so therefore, they have to have their say. The only curious thing is that they never made a resolution, and they say they would also want their own referendum. So it remains to be seen the 15-man committee will come out of it.
Okay, and then also, we know that the referendum, the initial call for a referendum, it's something that's closely linked to the CORD coalition, and there's been a lot of fervence behind it, you know, go referendum, we're pushing it. But at the same time, we've also seen cracks starting to form within the CORD coalition, starting from the demotion of the minority whip leader and his replacement, and how the Coast MPs came out and said, no, we don't support it. Then another section came out the following day saying we support it. So they're starting to seem like, you know, CORD is having a few issues. If just within the entire, you know, internal mechanism, CORD is having problems holding it together, how are they going to hold on to such a push?
Well, I think these two issues are mutually exclusive. How does, for example, the demotion of one Gideon Mungaro got to do with the referendum?
In that, it has shown that there are divisions within CORD,
but
and CORD is the one pushing the referendum.
The governor of Tharaka Nithi, who is TNA, has said that he's pushing for the referendum, and he has not been convinced by his majority leader, Kithure Kindiki, and Beatrice Nyaga, who is my friend. So there are also cracks in Jubilee. What happens is that CORD is very visible. So sometimes we do not know the internal wrangles of URP and TNA because essentially those parties are moribund. So I think it's good to appreciate that some of these divisions come because our side of the coalition tries to advance the project of democracy. Sometimes we fail. You saw what happened at Kasarani.
Yeah. Terrible.
It was a failure of the highest order. And I think my party needs to clean that mess. I think we need to have new leadership and young people. I, for example, was winning the position of Deputy Secretary General. We have the issue of Namamba now. But it does not necessarily mean that the people should not advance the issue of the referendum. They are mutually exclusive. But it's part of the democratic project.
So you can confidently say all instruments and all the functions within the CORD coalition are focused and determined to see this referendum through and successfully at that's going to happen.
I think in life, what is most important is trying to find your way despite the challenges. I think CORD has got its own challenges, so is Jubilee. But whether Kenyans should vote for a referendum or not, it is the people to decide.
All right. Then as we're about to wrap up, I'd like you to tell me that clearly Jubilee is against this. And do you feel like it's a disservice to the Kenyan population if you people are saying that the agenda of the referendum is set to better the Kenyan population? It's a bit of a disservice to the Kenyan population for them to be against something that ideally should benefit the entire country.
I think in politics is about competition of ideas. It depends on who convinces majority of the populace to go with him or her. And so therefore for me it remains to be seen who within either CORD or Jubilee will convince Kenyans to go with them. If it's within the script of Jubilee not to have a plebiscite, then they will have the opportunity to either frustrate it or to defeat it when the vote is called. It's also incumbent upon CORD to convince Kenyans that this is right for them. At this point in time, at this juncture, the jury is still at large.
But As we also talk about that, we know that Kenya is facing a variety of issues. That security is #1 concern. We also have the land question, which is raising a lot of questions and a lot of chaos. So why is that not part of the referendum initiative? Why doesn't the referendum want to deal with the issues that are affecting the common mwananchi?
But Michelle, those are part of the issues that the governors have raised in terms of devolution of security and called in terms of land reforms. They are squarely part of what has been proposed. We still are yet to see how they are going to be framed in a bill.
All right, so I suppose we can expect a success from CORD. You see a success?
I wish CORD success, I wish Jubilee success. Let the Kenyans decide. For me, I still insist we need a referendum law.
All right, so thank you so much for coming. I think it was important to clarify a few things. It goes without saying that a lot of Kenyans aren't sensitized about what it's about. And most Kenyans tend to think that it's just politics that we're being dragged into, that this is another political agenda that the Kenyan mwananchi is going to be forced to finance, that the Kenyan taxpayer is going to be pinched. So I'm happy to have you, and I'm glad that you have clarified issues and the necessity about it. So as we wrap up our interview, it goes without saying that it was an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today. And we have gotten the answers to the questions that a lot of us have been asking pertaining to the push for a referendum. We have clarified, we have given you just the facts on why it's an important initiative and how it's going to boil down straight to the grassroots. We've given you just the facts, just the information, the reality on the ground. I'm Kamene Goro. It was an absolute pleasure having you here with us. Until next time, do have yourself a lovely, blessed time.